Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's show. And if you're joining for the first time, this is part of our industry series for which we meet every Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. We review one vendor or the solution independently, and then we always have an expert panel that is willing to share their insights and wisdom. For today, we have a very exciting vendor or the solution that is called SAP Business One. We have done a couple of sessions on SAP, and this is their smallest product. So we are going to have a lot of fun reviewing that. Before we do that, we are going to start with everybody's intros. I am going to start with my intro. If you don't know me, I am Sam Gupta. I am principal at Elevate IQ. Elevate IQ is the independent ERP and digital transformation consulting firm. I have been leading ERP implementations for roughly 20 years. And SAP Business One has been always there in a lot of our engagement. So it's going to be a lot of fun discussing that. On that note, I am going to move to Phil for his intro.
Hi, Sam. Hi, everybody. I'm Phil Coerper, Managing Director of Ringling Business Solutions. We help executive leadership teams align their digital transformation strategy with their core businesses. And I come to you with over 20 years experience in the C-suite, a lot of ERP experience, and some particular experience with Business One. So looking forward to it tonight, Sam.
Okay, amazing. Thank you so much for being here, Phil. Dave, can I ask you to introduce yourself next?
Sure. Thanks, Sam. Hi, everybody. My name's Dave Crysler, and I own an operations consulting business working with manufacturing leaders, helping them create systems to optimize profitability and culture. And I come to you with more than 20 years experience in operations, implementing ERPs and systemizing businesses. So excited to be here. Thanks, Sam.
Okay, amazing. Thank you so much for being here, Dave. Andy, can I ask you to introduce yourself next?
Absolutely, Sam. My name's Andy Pratico. I've been involved in ERP software for small to mid-sized manufacturers for the last 4 decades. I've worked all over North America. I've worked with over 1,000 manufacturers, and I have a published book on the topic of how to select ERP software. Thank you for inviting me, Sam.
Okay, amazing. Thank you so much for being here. And if you are in the audience and joining for the first time, make sure you guys post your questions and comments. Typically, we try to cover them during the show. And if you cannot get to them, then our panelists are going to make sure that you receive your answers. So on that note, I am going to start with the briefing for today's solution. If you guys don't know what SAP Business One is, as I mentioned, this is one of the smallest products from the SAP portfolio. We have, I believe, I don't know if we have done SAP S/4HANA yet. You guys can remind me. We have done one session on SAP. We have done one session on SAP Business by Design. So in the SAP food chain, you have the small solution, you have the mid-size solution, and then you have the big solution. So SAP Business One is the smallest. Now, people always talk about SAP Business by Design because that is the stepchild in SAP's portfolio. But SAP Business One, for some reason, receives a lot of attention, even though a lot of people think that SAP is not really focused on the small business segment. Overall, from the visibility perspective, SAP Business One has always been a very successful product in general. It has roughly 70,000 installations. If we have some numbers that we can go over, which seems like it probably has more installations than your Microsoft GP. If I recall correctly from Microsoft session, I don't know if you guys recall or not, Microsoft GP has roughly 60,000. So this is 70,000. SAP Business One is especially successful in South America, Europe, where you are going to have a lot of complex localizations, and the geography is very complex from the taxation and regulation perspective. That's where SAP Business One is really successful. Now, overall, from the product perspective, as we all know, SAP is really behind in the cloud journey. And sometimes, when you are going to be talking to a lot of different partners, they will not tell you the difference between real cloud, fake cloud, but this is a super fake cloud. When you are looking from the partner's perspective, because SAP Cloud, version of SAP Business One is going to be super lean and limited. And we are going to review the screens, again, coming directly from SAP in terms of what web capabilities they have in the cloud version, which is very, very, very lean. You cannot probably utilize that for your business at this point of time. The partners have created a lot of different custom arrangements. They have very thick IP sitting on top of SAP Business One, and that's how somehow they are able to sort of enable cloud. Sometimes it blows my mind, how they are able to do it, but they are somehow able to sell it as the cloud product. But obviously that is probably going to be hosted on the partners infrastructure that is probably not supported by SAP Cloud. SAP Cloud for SAP Business One is going to be extremely lean and limited. Now, overall, from the product perspective, you are going to see on my face when I am going to be reviewing SAP product, because I absolutely love them, the way they are designed. Okay, the SAP product, all of them, including SAP Business One, has one of the best product architecture, the way the data is supposed to be organized. I just don't know any other products in the market that are going to have as streamlined architecture from the data model perspective. And that is probably the reason why SAP is so slow, because it does require a lot of thinking to be able to develop the data model. Otherwise, it's going to feel very patchy. It's going to feel all over the place. And most of the vendors in the market, they are really patchy, with the only exception being Acumatica, which is very well organized product, the way product is designed. And for some reason, Acumatica is able to move far faster in the market, compared to any other vendors, including SAP, even though they hardly have any resources. SAP probably has, I don't know how many resources. So that's pretty much from the briefing perspective. Do you guys have any questions, comments?
I would just echo that localization comment that you made, Sam. The times I've run into this software, there's companies that were very happy with it because of its ability to be localized, particularly in Europe, South America, places like that. I just think that's a real strength for these guys.
Yep, I agree. Anything else, Dave, Andy?
I was just going to mention that, to be very clear, as you mentioned, SAP has 3 major products that they promote. And they purchased the SAP Business One product from a Israeli company about 20 years ago or so.
Yeah.
And was for the full purpose of SAP was losing business because some of these smaller organizations that were using the big SAP at corporate were going off and buying other vendors because it was too big for their facility. So this was a great little plug and play, and to be able to maintain their customer base.
One more quick comment, Sam, and just a buyer beware comment. The SIs or the sales side, the salespeople in the SIs, just ask a lot of questions. If you've already kind of like the SAP environment, or maybe you're already on it within some on-prem and you're looking at a different environment, they push you up the food chain.
Yep.
And you really got to ask a lot of questions about where your particular application belongs in the food chain, and that you're buying the right product, assuming you've settled in on SAP, or even if you're comparing them to a few other platforms.
Okay, great points, guys. If you don't have any other comments, then I am going to move to the detailed discussion now. So here, as Andy pointed out, that SAP Business One was initially launched in Israel in 1996 under the name called Manahal. And I don't know what that is. I think it's called Manager is what they have written, or Top Manage for countries out of Israel. In 2000, Top Manage started its global expansion into markets in Europe and Latin America. And that could have been the reason why it has always had very strong presence in those markets. And those are very unique markets. sometimes companies don't even want to target those countries because they are going to be just too small. We have seen from our discussions that Aptean is trying to capture those very small, tiny, mini countries, because nobody else is there. So that could be a great market for them. But in this particular case, obviously, SAP has very strong localization component built as part of the product, and not just SAP Business One, across all of the products. And for that matter, even Microsoft is going to have. So the products from the bigger companies are going to have far broader localization capabilities that you are not going to find with some of the other vendors. For example, Infor, Epicor, Acumatica, NetSuite has far broader localization capabilities. So in the other cases, you're not going to find. They are going to have far deeper operational capabilities. But overall, from the localization perspective, they are not going to be penetrated globally. Now, here they are saying top managers. They also acquired the sister company. I guess that it was a full merger. They finally ended up acquiring pretty much everything that company had. So that's how I am reading these comments. Then the commentary is saying the acquisition allowed SAP to reach out to the small market through its partners, also to gain additional business from the smaller subsidiaries of its enterprise customers. So, Andy, I'm not sure how true the comment that you made is that, but I think that the reason why SAP acquired SAP Business One, because obviously they wanted to get their foothold in the smaller market. They were never a company for the small to medium size business market, but this is how they got into the small to medium size business market. Even today, if you look at the way SAP organization is structured, it's very different. SMB is one team, enterprise is one team. They have been trying to merge them together, but it's very rare that they are going to work as part of one team. Now, some more comments here. Overall, I think there is a little journey here, how SAP Business One has been evolved. So in 2010, I think they introduced the Crysler reports integration unified code base. In 2012, they did some of the usability enhancements, SAP HANA support, which is a big deal, in my opinion, for a product that is going to be as small as SAP Business One. If you are getting HANA and Fury, I love both of them, to be honest. I mean, it is one of the best experience from the UX perspective. There are 2 or 3 different products that I am a big fan of overall from the UX perspective. Obviously, one is going to be SAP. The second is going to be Acumatica. Third is going to be Epicor because of the kinetic experience. And they are really good at UX. I'm not talking about anything else, just UX at this point of time. So here, Fury is amazing. HANA is amazing. No questions about that. 2013, they introduced single sign-on, bin locations, and that's where they got the 64-bit client. So, by the way, they are going to have HANA, they are going to have Fury, but on desktop experience. They don't have cloud. Okay, so make sure you understand that, because when you're looking at the product, it's not going to be cloud. It's probably not going to be web. Even it is going to be, if it is going to be web, then most likely it is going to be partner hosted. They must have used some tricks to port that product somehow over web. But officially from SAP, the cloud version is very, very, very lean.
So if SAP Business One is promoting a cloud version, that would be a single tenant. Is that right, Sam?
No, that's okay. So let's step back a little bit and discuss the single tenant versus multi-tenant. So depending upon how you describe that, right? So SAP Business One, the comparable for SAP Business One is going to be Microsoft GP. It's going to be Syspro. It's probably going to be Macola. So depending upon how you define single tenant, if you talk to anybody, especially if you talk to technical people, they are going to say it's multi-tenant because that's how SAP infrastructure is designed. But the way I like to look at from the ERP perspective is really from how your entities are going to be stored in the databases. Do you have to log in and log out to be able to access the information of the other entities, or are those entities going to be sharing the data? When we talk about vendor master, customer master, item master, can you manage your item master from one location and promote it to other locations. So that's where the serious functionality of multi-entity is going to be handy. SAP Business One is not designed for that. In fact, SAP is very clear in their positioning, how they like to position their products. So SAP Business One is supposed to be for the smaller customers, which do not require multi-entity functionality as much, even though they might have multiple entities, but their databases are probably going to be separate. Okay, so they are going to have localization in a lot of different countries, but the whole idea is you must have a small operation. Otherwise, you should probably be using something like SAP Business My Design, which nobody likes, or SAP S4 HANA. But the whole idea of SAP Business One is you must have, just one entity, one legal entity, and that's where SAP Business One is positioned right. So I don't know if I answered your question. Any follow-up comments there, Andy? Okay. So here, obviously until 2014, it was really lean. That's where they introduced the resources module, the branches, and the branches concept come from, the slightly more retail distribution products. Phil, as we had reviewed, Acumatica has branch concept when you are going to have these franchises. So the whole idea is sometimes the branches are going to have balance sheet. Sometimes they are going to be simply P&L centric, branches. So most products that are going to be retail distribution centric, they can support both of these scenarios, but that is not your, the company, the entity, and then you have the site, and then you have the branch, right? So the branches are not supposed to be the legal entity. They are still supposed to be, or just the, it's not dimension either. Some products track it as just the dimension, which is not a very cleaner model. So in this particular case, it's still going to be slightly more company, but it's not a company. I don't know if I'm making sense here.
No, I think you are, and that's pretty consistent with all of these, is it not, Sam? That you're gonna tie a balance sheet to an entity of some sort, and then if you have branches or you have other sub organizations, if you will, that you'll tie sales, gross margin, OpEx expenses, things like that, but probably not balance sheet to it. You'll do that more on an enterprise or on a business basis, and I think that's consistent with a lot of these packages.
So I want to be clear there. So in terms of the entity, if you look at all of these products, typically entity is going to have the chart of account. It's going to have a currency, distinct currency. Some products are going to be limited. They cannot support different currencies. So for example, let's say if you have a legal entity in Canada, legal entity in the US, then you are probably going to be creating these two in two different entities. And then you might have 2 sites in Canada, 4 sites in the US, and those are going to be represented more as the site. Now, you are a retail organization, you might have 5 stores. Let's say, under one entity in the US. Now, those could be branches. Sometimes they could be just P&L based. Sometimes they could be balance sheet, depending upon how you are structured financially.
Right. And I don't want to get too far in the weeds, but it's really a matter of if you have a full ledger or a sub ledger, right? So it's really a matter of at what degree are you reporting the financials? In other words, at what degree are you rolling that entire business up? Entities, one of those words that's used in different ways, but in this case, it probably fits, right? It's an actual business. It's a business that's a legal entity. You would need a full ledger for that business in any of these software packages.
I agree. Okay, so in 2016, they introduced the project management capabilities, the browser access, browser access. And again, I don't think this is the cloud browser access. This is, I don't know what that is, but, they sort of seems to be claiming that they probably introduced something there. And then they are talking about MRP, but that was only available in HANA version. So HANA is going to have far deeper capabilities, at least for the very deep technical capabilities from the recommendation perspective, from the MRP perspective. They are all going to be available in HANA because SQL could not support the workload that a product as thick as SAP Business One really needed. The customer 360 was only present in HANA just because of the transactional depth, as I always talk about, because when you are trying to associate pretty much everything related to that customer to the customer record, that becomes a very, 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 very thick, business object that if you are going to be operating on that, or if you're retrieving that, that becomes a very thick call overall from the database perspective. And that's why they probably had that only in case of HANA. Then in 2017, they did a little bit of production enhancement, RMA features they launched. So as you can see, I mean, again, I don't think the SAP Business One had very deep functionality overall. It was supposed to be very light manufacturing product in general. It was not supposed to be a very thick product. So in 2020, this is where I guess they launched the Fury experience, and that is something I absolutely love, the way Fury is done. And then they introduced some of the interactive Gantt chart, project management. Again, the operational project management capabilities that we have seen in the case of Microsoft, that you are going to find in the case of SAP as well. And we are going to be reviewing their manufacturing scheduling, the way SAP likes to think about manufacturing scheduling. In my mind, that's far stronger in general, the way they have done. And Andy, we can talk about the differences in the other manufacturing software. Some of the things that I definitely want to point out, the way SAP approaches it. And these capabilities are available with SAP Business One, which is fairly commendable. But again, that's going to be in the desktop world, okay? Not in the cloud world. Cloud world does not have the production yet. So I want to be crystal clear there. Okay, so I can take some more comments. So this is the latest slide from them. And this is the announcement that is coming from 2021, 2022 announcement. And they claimed that they had roughly 70,000 plus customer, 1.2 million users available in as many as 50 country localizations in 28 languages. SAP Business One used in more than 170 countries. I don't doubt that at all. And then you have 360 plus large enterprises running Business One in 7,000 subsidiaries. And guys, and Phil, you can help me with maths here, but that seems like that, probably on an average, they have roughly 20 subsidiaries that are running on Business One, which is commendable. I don't recommend it. Okay, running 20 on Business One is a big deal. You should not be doing that, but seems like they are probably doing that. And that's probably a stretch because these partners are trying to oversell SAP Business One's capabilities.
Yeah, or they're using this for limited functionality and they got other things going on too. It's possible. That I don't see this software in that app with that many spread that thin, if you will. It just doesn't seem right.
Yeah, and most likely in my experience, if you are in the geography such as Europe or South America, sometimes you might be making $50,000 in each country because those countries are going to be very small. So you don't have to connect them. That is just a stretch to integrate them, to be honest. Okay, so, but I mean, you have to be in those countries because you might have 300 people living in that country. So then you have to move to some other country. So that's why it does really well in South America as well as Europe, just because the local overall footprint of those countries is probably going to be really small. The amount of revenue that you can get in those countries is going to be really small. So you anyways need to expand to 10 countries to feed your family. Okay. So any other comments, guys?
Well, I just one comment on that lower right-hand side of this slide. So it's always interesting to find out, especially a company that has multiple platforms, of where they're investing and what their roadmap is. And are they investing in one of their software options, or are they kind of letting it die on the vine, which means it may be getting to the end of its life? And their motto, enrich the core and extend the web client, implies that they're investing. But when I looked at that yellow section there, I'm interested in your guys' opinion. It doesn't look like they're adding that much real functionality to their cloud client. So I'm wondering if this really, everybody wants the cloud, but I wonder if this really is an on-prem solution more than a future cloud solution, Sam, based on their roadmap. Interested in your opinion on that.
Dave, you unmuted yourself. Comment?
Yeah, I was just going to say, from my perspective, Phil, again, looking at the material available, it seems as though that they're positioning it that way. It's out of all the solutions we've seen, it seems like that's a pretty clear tact from their positioning standpoint. That's at least my perspective on it. I'd be curious to see where you stand on it, Sam.
Yeah, honestly speaking, Phil, there are two reasons. Number one, SAP is not as committed to the SMB, irrespective of how hard they want to yell that no, I care for my SMB market. So for them, SMB is just a lead generation strategy. Okay, so from the product development perspective, they have put something out there. When they had acquired, the product was really thick. They didn't put as much effort overall in developing that, right? That's probably the reason why it is going really slow. And then they have a conflict. In my opinion, if you are going to make this product as thick as SAP Business by Design, why are you not promoting that product, which is the wonderful product? It has far deeper functionality. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever why you have two products. In my opinion, they should just kill SAP Business One, but then 70,000 customers that they have, they are not going to be happy about it. Okay, so that is the challenge that SAP is running into. And the partners are not going to be happy about it either, because in the traditional SAP Business One world, partners actually made a ton more money than SAP did, to be honest, from SAP Business One, because the thick IP and the cloud infrastructure that they had on top of the SAP platforms, again, partners have far more cloud in this game, and that has been a challenge for SAP. And right now, they have to please the partners, they have to please the customers. So it's very, 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 very hard lift. And that is probably the reason why cloud probably is not going to get as thick functionality, because they have to make sure partners are making money. It's very, very, very hard for SAP to manage the balance there.
That is really an interesting topic, and I'll not go too far into it because you could spend 10 minutes on that. But if their offerings are getting closer and closer from differentiation standpoint, but they have legacy customer in the lower product in this particular case, they have to choose a path. They have to choose a path of either driving people towards the higher product, in this case the mid product, or making this product really tailored for a niche, and if they're going to target it, then they've got to have a transformation of their whatever piece of that 70,000 customers that they're saying to the next product. So I bet you that if the SAP guys are listening, we're probably mirroring a lot of conversations you guys are having in your boardroom of trying to figure out your path.
Yeah.
To add to that, Phil, all I was going to say is they're going to have that challenge regardless, because you have to imagine the majority of those 70,000 are going to be on-prem anyway. So they're going to have that challenge, that migration challenge, regardless of if they continue to develop this and move people into the cloud, or move them into their mid-level product.
Yeah, don't tell SAP this. Leave this one on-prem and let the other one be your cloud version, guys.
All right, guys. So this is the cloud version, and I want to be absolutely clear here in terms of cloud, because you will not be able to spot the difference. In fact, I struggle with it a lot. They both are going to appear very similar. You will not be able to spot the difference. So this is their cloud version. And if you see the menu up top, you are going to get sales, purchasing, payments, accounting, service. But all of these modules are super lean. Obviously, you are not going to find anything related to manufacturing, production that is not there in the cloud version yet. Okay, when I'm looking at the demo, I get confused even today. Okay, whether I'm looking at cloud or am I looking at on-prem, and SAP is not going to be clear about their positioning, where they are overall. You have to be really informed, and you have to pay a lot of attention, drink a lot of coffee to be able to find that. Okay, so we will be comparing and contrasting this with the on-prem. So the other slides that we are going to have are going to be far more on-prem, and you will see how powerful SAP Business One product was, to be honest, in the on-prem world. And that's why it has such great adoption, because other products could not really match the capabilities that SAP Business One had in the on-prem world. We are going to see, but it has become really hard for SAP somehow to replicate that in the cloud version and sell SAP Business by Design, which already has all of this. Okay, so here is how, now this is all on-prem, okay? Now this is not cloud. So in this particular case, if you actually pay attention to the difference in the menu, then you are going to see things like inventory, procurement, production, MRP, all of that was not there in your cloud version. The functionality is not as thick. In fact, one of the top partners, SAP Business One partners, if you look at their demo, they have pointed out that it is more of the reporting tool. The web is the reporting tool. So if you want to do more of the analytics on top of your on-prem instance, then you are going to be using web instance. I just don't get it why they are positioning it that way. Obviously, partners want to sell their IP. It's in their best interest to sell their IP, and that's why they want to sell on-prem a lot more than the cloud version. But as a customer, you need to make your mind in terms of what you want. So here, I mean, SAP Business One overall from the layout perspective, it looks pretty. You are going to find all of those beautiful traceability, financial traceability that we saw in the case of Business by Design, where each of the document at each transaction you can track inside the product. That is going to be available in your cloud variant as well, but the cloud variant is not going to have as thick operational functionality that you need. If you are simply buying it maybe for accounting, maybe for procurement, maybe you are not for profit, then probably it's going to be okay, but it's probably not going to have the not for profit version. But if you are, let's say, distribution manufacturing, then obviously it's not going to work. The cloud version on-prem will work. Here, we have some more slides, and some of the things that you may want to notice is going to be related to the company. So this is where the whole single tenant versus multi-tenant versus single entity, multi-tenant entity conversation is going to be there. So here, the way the product is structured, each of the legal entity is going to be residing in a separate database. That's how this is structured, and that's why if you have UK, in the UK also you have multiple divisions. All of them will require changing the user, changing the login to move to them. So they are going to be completely separate databases as opposed to residing in one database. For example, let's say if you look at solutions such as NetSuite, InfoCloud Suite Industrial, SAP S/4HANA, SAP Business by Design, Microsoft, Dynamics Business Central, all of them are multi-entity product, and they can host all of these entities in one database as opposed to hosting in multiple databases that will require separate login. This is more of the single tenant product. The comparable for this is going to be Macola, Syspro, Microsoft GP is the right comparable for this product. One of the things that I absolutely admire and love about SAP products is the way their user authorization is done. It's very intuitive for a business user. And again, doing this requires a lot more thinking in terms of what changes are going to go to the product. And that's probably the reason why SAP development is just so slow. The other products, they are super patchy. The way the authorization is done, from the financial traceability perspective, in terms of what you want to enable, the SAP products are going to feel far more natural, and SAP Business One is no exception. The way the authorization is done, and again, this helps with the SOX compliance. Any sort of GDPR, then obviously you need to have really tight traceability, or you are going to run into issues from the regulatory perspective. Okay, and here we are looking at the traceability overall from the balance sheet perspective. So a lot of products, when you are going to look at them in the market, and I want to be absolutely clear here, this is the on-prem experience. Okay, you might have this in the cloud experience, but this is the on-prem experience that you are looking at. And in this particular case, one of the beautiful thing about SAP, and that could be because of HANA, that they have this power of providing the end-to-end traceability. Meaning, if you are going to have balance sheet and you want to have the end-to-end traceability of the transaction, meaning if you are going to click on the chart of accounts, if you are going to be clicking on any of the elements on your balance sheet, you can go to the real transaction. In that, you can go to the relationship map where you have the entire transaction captured. Now, this capability is going to be in Business by Design. This is going to be in SAP S/4HANA. So even the Business One has that flavor, and I'm sure that is probably there in the cloud version as well, right now. But you are going to see all of that. So again, with SAP, irrespective of whether you are buying the smaller product or the big product, you are going to get all of those good things that are part of the overall SAP experience. Now, some of the things overall from the inventory perspective, if you look at, for example, the UOM functionality, the unit of measure, is one of the strongest. And I have seen this functionality in some other products. For example, let's say if you look at products such as Syspro has very strong unit of measure support because the product is really targeted for the distribution companies. Those are the ones that are going to require the unit of measure support. Business Central is okay, not too bad. There are, so again, depending upon where the solution is positioned, SAP Business One does really, really well in the distribution space. So that's why they have a lot more capabilities overall from the item group perspective, from the unit of measure perspective. And then the way, they are going to have the items. So you have the inventory item, the sales item, the purchase item. Some of the solutions do not have that distinction. And sometimes it's very, very, very hard to isolate. Okay, let's say if the item is already produced, but I don't want to sell it right now, can I disable that? Sometimes even in the bigger solution, when you look at the manufacturing solution, it becomes very hard to do that. But a product as small as SAP Business One has all of that. If you look at the architecture of the screens, the way they are designed, it appears very clear. So you look at the general, the purchasing data, the sales data. So it's really designed from the business user perspective. You don't have that clarity in a lot of different products. So even though they might have a little bit architecture, but it becomes all over the place, they might call it something else. So here you are going to have very natural experience because typically your departments and the data sets are going to be segmented across your functional silos, and that's how SAP likes to structure. And again, this is a real product experience that you are not going to get in any other products unless they are really well thought of and they are not just a bunch of acquisition that the company has acquired. That's again probably the reason why SAP development is just so slow. Some controls that you have overall from the purchase order perspective, SAP has a lot of controls built in. So your data integrity is probably going to be far superior in general when you are going to be making any changes. And SAP complains a lot. Some people hate that, but that is designed to protect you, especially in the case of ERP. You definitely need those controls. The other things that I wanted to touch on the other slide is, SAP is not going to have as deep Excel capabilities. And again, the reason why SAP does not like Excel is because they are trying to promote as much control as possible overall from the product perspective. But they do provide you the capabilities to, let's say, copy the purchase order to purchase order right from the screen. You can combine one-to-N scenarios. That is all possible in case of SAP Business One, but you are not going to have as deep Excel capabilities. Again, because of the control, because once you go out of the system, then it's very, very, very hard to enforce that control. And that's the reason why SAP really likes everybody to really live in the product. They are making it easier inside the product. They are not trying to go outside of the product and lose control. The other things that I wanted to touch here is going to be overall the bill of materials. And SAP Business One has 3 or 4 different BOMs, the way they support. And by the way, guys, we have seen in case of Epicor, NetSuite, Epicor is very well positioned in the manufacturing space. And, we were thinking that, they are going to have the BOMs that, the way BOMs are supposed to be designed, but they didn't have that. Even NetSuite, we could not see that. But, from the SAP perspective, if you look at the way SAP's BOMs are designed, even though they are not going to have as strong manufacturing capabilities. For example, SAP Business by Design, even though it has very thick operational functionality, it is going to struggle with capabilities such as subcontract operations. Okay, it's really going to struggle with that. And most manufacturers are probably going to require subcontract operations. It also struggles with things like sales comp. You probably would require add-on. So these are going to be the challenges that you are probably going to face, even in case of Business One, even though it is going to have very deep, GL capabilities. It's going to have very strong UOM support. But when you look at the core manufacturing features that you are probably going to require, you might struggle with all of those. But from the BOM perspective, the BOM is very natural. Okay, it supports 3 or 4 different BOMs. It has the sales BOM, then it has the assembly BOM, then it has the template BOM, and then a production BOM. and the BOM is going to be as natural as the way we saw in case of Infor Cloud Switch Industrial. And that is one of the fewest product that really captures the way the manufacturing BOMs are supposed to be captured. Obviously all the big ones are probably going to have those capabilities, but in case of SAP Business One has very natural structure of BOMs. Okay, so this is the part that I really like about SAP Business One. And this is going to be the overall, and Andy, I would love to hear your comments as well. So some of the things that they are able to do it really well overall from the BOM scheduling perspective is going to be that they are able to capture the dates at each operations. So I don't remember seeing it in the case of Appic or Infor definitely does not have that. I know for a fact. Okay, so that is going to be dates at the operation level. Okay, so this is going to be helpful. Let's say if you are producing a job that runs quickly, let's say within 2 hours on a manufacturing floor, then no problem. You have your costing done, you have your scheduling done. But if your jobs are going to be extending over the period of time, meaning let's say you produce something, then you stop for 2 days, and then after that you need to again schedule. And even in the smaller manufacturing shop, you have those challenges because they cannot really run the machine. Machine could be the bottleneck, and because of that, they have to wait for a day or two. So sometimes the scheduling becomes very hard. You need to go off the system to be able to manage this, or you need to, let's say, store this in the inventory first. So then you are going to create additional transaction to be able to store, and then you have to release, and then you have to find place to be able to store. So, it becomes very complicated from the operational perspective. But in the case of SAP, you have the dates at the operations level, and that helps you in catering to these situations. And this is where, let's say, if you are a very project-centric engineer to order manufacturing organization, you are probably going to like the SAP experience far more than any traditional manufacturing centric solution. Because of this aspect, number one, the project management capabilities are going to be far stronger. The procurement and the resourcing is embedded as part of that. And then you have the complete WBS. It's not just the budgetary task that you are trying to capture. You are really going to have the whole Microsoft project experience, and then your scheduling is going to be slightly superior as well overall from the scheduling perspective. By the way, again, this is available in on-prem. Okay, you are not going to find all of this experience in cloud, and that's my challenge. Okay, why do you not have that? Obviously, Business by Design product is going to have, but it does not exist in Business One as of today in the cloud.
So Andy, let's just take 2 seconds to talk about scheduling, especially in SMEs. It's my experience that the majority of SMEs that have a legacy or even a little bit of a newer small ban or one of the lighter ERP systems are not using the ERP for scheduling. They're using spreadsheets and other back end things for scheduling. It's a tipping point of being easier. It's more direct just to work on a spreadsheet and work on the scheduling than it is to populate this. I wonder if this is robust enough to have somebody who's using spreadsheets to schedule their shop to move to the ERP. From those couple screens I saw, they were pretty. And you put the dates in, as Sam said, but is it enough? And have you seen your customers move to this type of a platform to schedule? I don't see that often.
Well, I think that Gantt chart that Sam was pointing out was for project management. Is that right, Sam?
I couldn't tell.
It wasn't for a work order. It was for a project.
That looks like production scheduling to me, but it's hard to tell.
It's small. I can't read it.
So the Gantt chart is also going to be, and that's where the beauty is, to be honest. It's really hard to produce Gantt chart in some of the other manufacturing systems because you don't have the start and end date, and you don't have the buffer that you typically need. So this is not going to be just for the WBS. It's going to be for production and scheduling as well.
Oh, right. But my point to Andy is the start and end date's great, but you still aren't going to be able to really capacity plan off of that. And you can do a lot with a spreadsheet when it comes to scheduling a small shop. So Andy, my question to you is at what point is there enough functionality in these for them to actually do scheduling?
Well, I'm not familiar with the depth of what Sam is showing here, so I really can't comment on that. But you're right. Most ERP systems, they all claim to have scheduling, just like this one certainly does. And they all have the ability to demonstrate something called scheduling. But I find that what the rubber hits the road is when you ask those ERP vendors for a list of customers, especially complex like engineer to order, that are actually using scheduling. And I rarely come across any companies that use any of these systems for that purpose. I mean, the Infor products certainly do, but I'm not familiar with companies using this tool, for example, that for scheduling. I mean, it sort of looks nice.
Yeah, so I think that's just for manufacturers that might see this, that really want to get off of the more manual scheduling process. It's worth a good deep dive on what these guys are really providing when it comes to scheduling, because there's a lot of functionality you need to really do that well.
The thing about scheduling, it's like every other terminology in ERP, is that there's 100 different definitions. And you really have to know what it is you expect a system to do before you can even know whether this one does or not.
To me, that's the biggest problem that you just hit on, Andy, because somebody sitting through a demo is going to ask, hey, can I use this to schedule, without any use cases, without really understanding what the output is that they need, and without talking to the people that are probably handling the scheduling from a manual standpoint today, that have a real comfort level with their ability to move things around and kind of, get production knocked out through Excel or whatever other type of, offline and or bolt-on tool.
Yeah. All right, guys. So some more slides, and then we can take some more comments. So here, this is the slide where we have the different localization, and obviously the localization is going to be just phenomenal. The number of countries that are going to be supported as part of the product, it's probably going to be the most that you can find in any small products. So obviously it is designed for that. The other things that I wanted to hit on is going to be, this is the BOM, Andy and Phil. So this is the sales BOM, and in sales BOM as well, you have a lot more flexibility. And I know the font is going to be really small because this is really designed for on-prem. Okay, so it's really hard to see things even in the YouTube videos. It's really hard because it's not really designed for web experience. So sorry guys, so I'm having a hard time reading it as well, but what it is trying to show is number one, the BOM is the sales BOM. So in case of sales BOM, you can really there are certain limitations in the sales BOM, the way sales BOMs work versus how the assembly BOMs are going to work. In some cases, you are allowed to change the quantity. In some cases, you are not allowed to change the quantity. So typically, this functionality is going to be helpful when how you are going to be, showing the BOM on the code. And typically, that is beneficial in case of your distribution businesses. Sometimes you want the expanded, contents of the kit. Sometimes you don't want that. So that's where this all functionality is going to be super handy. That's why they have so many different BOMs, the sales and the assembly. The template is going to be more of the configurator. Obviously, SAP Business One is not going to have any configurator. Okay. So if you are
as a sales BOM, Sam, how do you define that?
So sales BOM is going to be a BOM that is part of your code. So so for example, let's say if you look at Epicor Infor, right? I mean, they are going to have the estimate BOM. If I'm not mistaken, right? Estimate is a BOM as well. So let's say if you have the make to order situation, the sales order is going to have all of the components that you are going to have, and that is going to convert into the estimate. Estimate is going to, if they confirm, let's say if the customer confirms the code that okay, version 1, version 2, version 3, I like it. Okay, BOM goes to your production floor and they start producing it. So this is the sales BOM is going to be the whole idea of sales BOM is how you want to show on the sales code. So sometimes you have to remove certain things from the sales code perspective Not a lot of systems provide that flexibility. In some cases, you are going to need that flexibility because, sometimes what you want to do is you want to show just the parent item and you don't want to show all of the contents, because then they will know how to produce that and then you are out of business.
So a sales bomb is just a more simple version of the bomb. Is that what you're basically saying?
No, not simple. I would say it's really related to the configuration options that you are going to be needing at the sales quote level as opposed to at the production level. The whole idea of production bomb is, how you want to manipulate that for the production. Sales is meaning how you want to manipulate that for quote. And yes, in a lot of different businesses, you need that flexibility. You need that commercial experience that does not exist in a lot of different ERP systems. SAP provides that natively for most of their products. The assembly is the similar, kitting, I guess. It's not really so they have the assembly bomb, and then they have the your template bomb, and template bomb is the configurable bomb, but they don't really have the configurator. So obviously, if you are configured to order manufacturing, you are simply going to have a template, but it's not really nearly as close to your configured to order manufacturing. But then, in the bomb, you are going to have all of those operations, and this is where you are going to have the quantity. You are, I'm trying to show the assembly bomb. You can change the quantity. In the template bomb, you can change a lot more things. In the sales bomb, you might not be able to change all of those. Now, here, this is the routing step that I was looking for. In the case of Epicor NetSuite, I could not find those. So these are the steps that I typically need for my bomb, because that's how your manufacturing bomb is supposed to be structured. And so one of the things that I really found, and I was mentioning to you, Andy, right? So this is where you are going to find the setup, but you are not going to have as much distinction overall in terms of how many different types of hours that you can capture. So here you are going to have an option for the runtime. You are also going to have waiting time. But let's say if you look for the setup hours, you look for move hours, all of those options may not be there. But at least you have the back flushing functionality at the material as well as at the labor level. So you have some flexibility there. And then this is the capacity planning module. So this is the resource master data. So the whole resource module is very sophisticated, the way resourcing is done. And that is going to have all of your dates as well as part of your capacity planning. Again, that is very hard. When I look at slightly more job-centric manufacturing packages, they don't accommodate date. For them, it is always going to be the fast-moving job in the same day, and that's why they don't accommodate date. But when you're looking at planning for your supply chain, you need to have that date. So that would be my challenge with some of the manufacturing solutions that we have seen.
These screens are actually intriguing. There's some, you can't really see them completely, but it looks like they've got some pretty good routing and some pretty good demand planning capabilities behind this.
More than I thought, that's for sure.
Yeah, more than I thought too from the earlier conversation there, Andy. And they're also got, some consignment options and some other things like that, which would be surprising if they're managing that type of functionality as well. That's pretty advanced functionality.
Yeah, and this is where, guys, and this is the real bomb. This is the production bomb, as you guys might be able to see it. Okay, so this is where you have the start date, end date. You have the waiting days, total days. So you have the real days. And again, when you are looking at the real engineer to order situations, you are not going to have those fast moving jobs that you are producing every day. So that's where this is going to be super handy overall from the scheduling perspective. If you look at the routing date calculator, you have on start date, on end date. So the whole Gantt chart functionality is actually part of your bomb, which is really compelling. And that's why I like SAP Business One scheduling a lot. But again, this is on-prem, not cloud. Okay, I want to be absolutely clear.
I was going to ask for that distinction, because that was exactly what was in my mind, Phil, as you were making that comment, thinking, okay, well, yeah, the screens look great, but what are we looking at? Are we looking at,
it's
what are they selling us? Or
what? Yeah, just by how Sam has been training us how to tell. These look like on-prem screens, right?
Yeah.
Do they sell both versions, Sam?
Yeah, and SAP is not going to tell you whether you are getting on-prem, and they'll push you to on-prem because they want to sell, obviously. And they know that they cannot compete using their cloud because it's going to be really lean. So, they'll make sure, or you are going to be looking at partners IP. And partners will never tell you, because sometimes you can buy on partners' paper. They will never tell you that you are buying their IPs. So yeah, it's very, very, very hard to work with SAP in that regard. Yeah, and again, that's where I guess you need to talk to somebody who sort of knows the underpinnings of how these solutions are architected and structured. So this is how the job traveler looks. And again, when we look at Apicore's job traveler, okay, I just could not feel how you can do manufacturing in Apicore. I was really concerned there. But this is how the job traveler looks, where you have the operation has material has dates. Okay, so the dates is fairly compelling in my mind. So again, that's where the beauty is. Again, on-prem experience, SAP Business One that's why it is so popular and strong, because you could do a lot more things. That's not possible now in the cloud world. And by the way, the costing is very, very, very layered and deep as well, that we could not see in any other platforms. But in general, even the SAP partners, they just don't know how to demonstrate SAP products, to be honest. You will never hear or see them talking about these things, which are the real differentiator for SAP. They really struggle to demo that in my experience. This is the real experience that you are going to get from the SAP perspective. So this is, again, it's built as part of SAP One. Can you believe this? This is the kind of traceability that you are looking for. And we saw this is possible in case of your Business by Design, which is a pure cloud product, guys. You should be buying. I don't know why you would not consider SAP Business by Design.
Right.
All of these things are available in SAP Business by Design, which nobody really likes for some reason.
Well, this is how it displays traceability graphically like this?
Exactly. This is going to be your end-to-end traceability of the transaction, starting from your purchase order, whatever happened to that, how many ever returns, how many ever ARs, how many ever deliveries, if something got rejected, quality, everything is going to be part of the same traceability. And that is going to be connected right from your balance sheet. Can you believe this?
Yeah, and that visual look of the process flows, they've carried that to S/4HANA. That's in their DNA, and it's really slick.
And by the way, you are also going to get the physical document, and that's a big deal. Okay, physical document is always hard with a lot of different products. So here, the physical document is going to be part of your chain, which is just mind-blowing. And the bin functionality, we saw this in case of your Microsoft Dynamics Business Central. It is very similar. It's very deep. And again, that's how the distribution-centric products are supposed to be. So bin has 4 layers. You have the warehouse, the aisle, the column, the shelf. That's how your bins are designed. But overall, the architecture is slightly cleaner and clearer. Business Central gets very confusing when I look at it. Okay, I just don't like it because, we could see bins all over the place and we were not even sure what the hell bin was. Sometimes, it had zone. It's very confusing product in general. But, SAP, the way it organizes the information for a business user, it's a dessert. The only challenge is it's not available in the cloud. Right now.
We're pretty close to time, Sam.
Yeah. So that's pretty much it for this one. Let me just open up for the commentary.
I have another question for you, Sam. Obviously, they've got these 2 versions. One's on-prem and one's in the cloud. And obviously, depending upon the client's specific expectations of a system, they're going to push them one way or the other. But let's say they want a more advanced system, but there's got to be in the cloud. So they push them to the cloud. How does that work? I mean, can they convert back to the on-prem version, or if they find out it's not heavy enough, or what?
Phil has practical experience with that. Phil can tell you.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you can always set up an instance on-prem. You might even do that for an environment because you want to have a test environment or something. But I think if you fully implement cloud and then you want to go backwards and do the on-prem, it's another implementation.
Sure it is.
You'll be able to use some process flow and some other stuff, but the software packages have so much different capability that it's almost another implementation in my mind. And I don't know why they said in their thing, and Sam, if you want to disagree with that, you might have some different experiences, but they said in their thing that they want to expand the cloud presence and get into the cloud presence with this particular product. I don't know if they mean it. And I don't know why they would want to do that. it seems like this is a perfect product for it's deeper on functionality than I expected going through
Absolutely.
this.
Yeah.
And I think there's a really
the
good market
on-prem
for
version
them.
is deeper.
The on-prem, yeah, and so why is an SME that needs manufacturing capabilities and some of the BOM capabilities and other things we saw, why do they want to go to the cloud? Just because it sounds good?
A lot of companies are that way. They do it because
Phil, so just to be clear, if you are on-prem, you are not going to be able to access the system across your browser and on mobile. Okay, you are going to be VPNing to be able to use the product.
That's the difference.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's how you use the.
But people have been using VPN forever. And you can also, as you said, you can put some of the reportability type of issues into a cloud access. You're saying no?
There's no way. Okay, that's not the same experience as. That's why we have cloud. Okay, you want experience, across the devices and on the browser.
I want my cake and eat it too, Sam. Well, then, okay, then I'm gonna go. Then I'm gonna go. And I don't know why VPN is a bad word, but I guess it is. But so,
performance, right? That's usually the reason why people are cost and performance.
Yeah, cost.
Yeah. Okay, but so you go to the cloud and you don't get the functionality you want, and you end up with a bunch of workaround software in order to get what you want. What does that cost you?
I think a lot of people, though, to that point, Phil, a lot of people aren't kind of recognizing that limitation right out of the gate. Especially they're sitting through these demos and asking some of the high level questions, and I think getting, in some cases, kind of the sales job on it, right? And if you're already excited about that as a solution, it's easy to latch onto that and then kind of go down the path of, well, it's too late. We're already here, so let's just figure it out and make it work. Okay, and I think that's the big challenge with all of this. It's getting back to Andy's point from earlier, knowing the questions to ask, continuing to dig in, talking about real world use cases. Right? What's happening in my business? How does that impact the process of this ERP and the functionality of it, and talking through those real examples? And, unless you're engaging somebody that has already gone through at least one, if not multiple implementations, you don't know what you don't know.
Sam, have you ever found or heard of anyone that got the demo on the on-prem version, but thought they were getting the cloud version, then bought the cloud version, then realized, oh my goodness, it doesn't do half of what I thought? Like the old bait and switch thing?
So you have both cases, actually. Okay, so we have seen some crazy scenarios, and I don't know what these partners are trying to do, to be honest. Okay, so they are somehow able to create that web experience, even in case of your on-prem software somehow. Okay, so probably you don't need to do VPN, because when VPN is a very inconvenient experience, Phil, it's not as easy. So for example, let's say if I want to use my cloud on-prem software on my system, I need to first of all connect with my VPN. Let's say if I'm in a client meeting or whatever, and I am trying to get to my ERP, what that is going to do is it's actually going to disconnect my internet, okay, for 10 minutes, and I need to figure out, okay, how that is going to work, and then finally get back. First of all, I need to authenticate it's a very, very, very inconvenient experience. But somehow SAP partners have figured out, okay, how to enable that web experience using the on-prem version. So even if you are looking at SAP Business One, some partners are able to sell it as pure cloud when it is not pure cloud. So be careful when you are looking at SAP Business One. SAP Business One is one of the most oversold product in general, the way partners are selling it.
Right. And I hear you on VPN, except for I've been doing VPN for 20, 30 years, right? And, unlike Andy, I got all my hair. So, it's not that horrible. We've been doing it forever.
I'm always jealous. I'm always jealous of all three of you, actually.
Yeah.
and last time when we were discussing about the double tabbing scenario, and you were like, Phil, you know what? I definitely want my double tap, right?
Yeah.
With Salesforce, I can't live without it. Now you're okay with VPN, Phil.
Sam, I got to call you out. You just contradicted yourself. I said, well, why don't you just make a way for the on-prem to look like cloud access? And you said I was crazy, didn't know what I was talking about. And then you just said that these guys are doing it. So you got to pick which road you're going to be on here, man.
All right, guys, too much fun. All right, so we are close to our time now. And I can take some more short comments if you have. Otherwise, we need to close.
The only comment I want to make is that, this is looking at the functionality in this on-prem version is very surprising. a lot, and what you were saying earlier, a lot of the SIs have built their own add-ons or are marketing their own add-ons all over the place to do with more advanced manufacturing capabilities. So just make sure you know what you're getting when you buy it. If it's a bolt-on, make sure the support is there with the SI, not third-party support, and you're going to get finger pointing. Just make sure you know what you're getting into before you put pen to paper.
Okay, amazing. Any other short comments, guys? Phil, Dave? All right, guys, that's a wrap. So if you're looking at SAP Business One, be really careful because obviously you are dealing with SIs and they are incentivized to sell their own IP. It's a great product, but be really careful with the contract as well as with the product. And that's it for today. If you joined for the first time, this was part of our industry series for which we meet every Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. We review one vendor or the solution. So make sure you guys are going to be here next week. We are going to come back with another solution. On that note, I want to thank everybody for their time and insights tonight.
Thank you so much, Sam.